What's going on, guys? It's Adam P. Welcome back to more Newcastle United transfer news. You can see I'm currently out in the streets of South Korea as part of Newcastle United's Asia tour. Midnight and it's 28 degrees. How am I catching a tan in the dark? It's crazy. But of course, we are here to talk about Newcastle United behind the scenes. Been a lot going on in terms of news, a lot of noise, zero action. Nothing's came in so far and nothing's came out. It looks like now, though, Newcastle will land their second signing of the summer transfer window. This one being Aaron Ramsdale, another goalkeeper now. A lot of negative responses from Newcastle fans on social media, and you can't exactly blame them. I don't have an issue with the signing itself. I have an issue with everything else going on behind the scenes. If Ramsdale came in with two strikers, a centre-half, a centre midfielder, we've sought more this window than we brought in. So if Ramsdale came in with all these other signings sorted, I wouldn't mind it. But it's a fact that we don't have anything sorted and we're going in for a goalkeeper again. Ask the obvious question in terms of Ramsdale. Is he better than Trafford? No. Is he better than even Nick Pope? I'd say no. So you're effectively getting a goalkeeper in who is number two. He's just going behind Nick Pope. However, I actually don't mind that. And the reason why I don't mind that is when you look at Fabrizio Romano's post, he talks about the transfer being a loan with an option to buy next summer. So you're getting a goalkeeper in as a safety option. In fact, I think Newcastle probably aren't even going to get him next summer. You might just get him in now for the simple fact, keep him a year, make sure everything's okay. And then next summer, you go and get that goalkeeper you wanted to get. It's kind of like Newcastle just playing it safe and making sure while we are going to look and we are going to take time, all this noise going on in the background, we're going to go out there and get these players in. For now, you're just making sure we haven't forgot about the goalkeeper behind the scenes. And you know what? For a little move, I don't mind it so much. But not to discredit Aaron Ramsdale, but it's an incredibly unambitious signing in our point of view. Ramsdale, of course, is now a former England international, has the horrific relegation record of going down in back-to-back seasons with Sheffield United and Southampton, respectively. I like him as a goalkeeper. I think he is someone that, under Eddie Howe and the coaching staff, and that's a big part as well, because Eddie Howe and the coaching staff are massive fans of him. Eddie Howe's worked with the player before. He clearly wants to bring him in. And for me, as long as Eddie Howe and the coaching staff are happy and this is a sign that they want, I haven't got an issue with it. But the issue is everything else in this window. You talk about last summer, you had the joke back then, even John Woody came and Black Demos came, and you're joking around and going, well, hang on, we need to try and make these signs, and all of a sudden, you goalkeepers coming in. It's the exact same again. You can't still have so many areas you need to fill in for. You talk about centre-halves, you haven't even mentioned Scalvini in about a month. In fact, when Keith Downey first posted about it on X, you actually had Sunderland fans going into the comments section that misread the post and felt like it was about them. So Sunderland fans, as soon as the notification came out, were typing in going, oh no, I can't believe it, please don't sign. That's them talking. Like, they've accidentally assumed that they were going in for Ramsdale, and that's the Sunderland fans talking about how bad of a sign it would have been for them, never mind us. But again, I'm happy with the loan side of it. If you were talking £30 million down now, I would be effing and jeffing and ranting all over the place here. But the actual loan part of it, I don't mind so much, just getting someone in for now. But you talk about Sunderland as well. They've actually spent more money than Newcastle in this transfer window, which is astonishing when you put it that way. Granit Xhaka actually would get on our bench now. He doesn't start ahead of our players, and he is in his 30s now. But even that, quite a good sign for them. I reckon he would have been half decent for our bench, but they've spent way more money than us. And a lot of teams in the league have done the exact same thing. Newcastle have money to spend now, but they're not doing it. It's just been such a mess behind the scenes, and the fully sacked situation. While we had a terrible window going into the Isak stuff, that has properly caved us in, hasn't it? We're struggling quite a lot with that behind the scenes. I really feel like we are, and we still don't know what's going to happen to him next in terms of options. Newcastle, they're rushing around trying to get these strikers in. Haven't been too excited with the names have been linked with, and of course, we have a separate video already about it earlier in the day, so make sure you go back and watch that. It's a double upload today. This one obviously came out after I was recording the video. I think Charlie Bennett described the full goalkeeper situation quite well at Newcastle. After the signing of Nick Pope 3 years ago, you would assume Newcastle would go out and buy a better goalkeeper next to go into the squad. I feel like it would give Nick Pope quite good competition when you got a goalkeeper, you know, who'll have a bad performance. He's going to come straight in for me, and then you have a real good kind of back and forth between two goalkeepers that are going to be competing at the top of their game to make sure they play for Newcastle every week. But you get Black Demos in because of this point deduction PSR rubbish. John Woody comes as a training ground goalkeeper, and now you're going to get Ramsdale, who is probably better than Jabrika. I feel like, especially his age, is 27 now. That's young enough to be able to have a good few years at Newcastle if we were to sign him in the future. This season's an opportunity for him with, of course, Champions League football and cup competition as well. Nick Pope's going to get most of the game time, but as a loan option, Ramsdale is ready to come in if anything happens to Pope or he drops off in form. I like the loan side of it. I say it again, I actually think the loan side of it is good. I know on social media you're going to see thousands and tens of thousands of Newcastle fans even talk about how bad of a sign it is, and I do agree with some respect, but for 1 year, I don't mind it on a loan. However, I'm worried for the rest of the signs. If Ramsdale is coming in as our second sign of the summer, who are we going to sign after Ramsdale? I know we are linked to big names out there, but I made a video earlier today. We're talking about Newcastle wanting to put £65 million into Nicholas Jackson. We're going for these, I guess, Premier League English players where they're just awful. Some of them. I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, it's screaming, in my opinion, this transfer window for Newcastle to go and get Dominic Calvert. It's the exact same situation with Ramsdale here, where we're getting a player in just to fill the numbers and to make sure if an injury happens to someone, you've got an option there. Ramsdale is that option for Nick Pope. And I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm not even joking, I actually think we're going for him. I've got a horrible feeling we're going to go for this guy at some point in the window. We have been linked with him in the past. Newcastle have always tried to get a different player in. But when those options run out, and you've seen it with the strikers in this window, our clubs go around getting those options in. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, there's something about him. I reckon we'll go back for him, and that just screams about this window as a whole now. Eddie Howe, in my opinion, has earned the right and earned the opportunity to be able to go and get the players he wants. If he wants Ramsdale, if he wants Dominic Calvert-Lewin, then so be it, regardless of what I say about the topic. But the player, in terms of these bigger signs, in terms of the options that we have been trying to get in this window, they have to get the job done. They've been poor without disrespecting the club or anything like that. You got to look at the PIF as a whole, though. You can't say they've been ambitious this summer. They've floated big bids around, yes, but there's no intent to go in with low offers. And when you look at the bids Newcastle's placed all summer long, all the bids have just been undervalued. They've all been under what the clubs want. And I get that Newcastle does not want to overspend and be unable to buy our players, but we haven't bought anyone really. We bought Alanga and then a goalkeeper on loan. So when you look at the situation with Newcastle, yes, I don't want us to overspend. Yes, I don't want teams to take the mick out of us, but they take the mick out of us anyway. Brentford won £50 million for Wissa, a player that has 1 year left in his contract with a year of extension. 29 years old and they want £50 million for him. This is the issue now because we haven't been able to get these strikers in earlier in the window. Now with the Isak noise in the background, teams know Newcastle's desperate and teams know Newcastle need to go out and get options now. So what are they doing? Of course, they're using it for their advantage, and that's the issue now. We've waited so long in the window to get these players in. Eddie Howe, in my opinion, has not been properly backed in this window. So when you look at the back end of the window now with Newcastle, we know on social media, and everyone in the world at this point knows that Newcastle is desperate to get these players in. Clubs are ripping us off big time. There's always been that Premier League and Newcastle United tax, especially inside the league, and the club and the PIF behind the scenes now have that extra layer of need to get past in order to get a player in. And it's all our fault. I think it is all our fault. I'm not going to come out in this video now, and while of course some things like FFP and PSR are beyond our reach, and we'll discuss about that at a different time. But Newcastle, this window, had the money there. They had the options to go out and buy, and they didn't do it. It's too much low balling, too much waiting around, too slow. In my opinion, especially after Murder and Amanda left, there seems to be a delay between the PAF and then the club itself. So let's say, for example, Newcastle early in the window, we attempted to sign João Pedro. So the PAF put a £50 million bid in, Brighton reject. So let's say Newcastle now are thinking about a second bid. Andy Howe, Steve Nixon, whoever it would be, travelling down to Brighton and being able to try and get the sort of the player side of thing. You have to wait for the public investment fund because Newcastle then have to figure out what they want to put in, and then our club internally has to then basically talk to the public investment fund, and you just have Amanda and Murder, I guess, in the middle. So you used to be able to have them, they just get it done straight away. They'll be able to, at least the player side of things, to be able to sort it out. But since Amanda and Murder are now gone, no director of football in Newcastle, when we're actually trying to figure out what we want to bid and what we want to do, it's so slow because you haven't really got like properly designated staff members to be able to effectively pull up what Newcastle want to put in, look at the finances, and look at the FFP and legal sides of it. So then eventually when you get to the public investment fund, they're slow getting back as well. So it just seems, to, in my opinion anyway, Newcastle and the public investment fund are both slow, but it's because of the, I guess, the lack of communication, there's lack of connection together, which is mental because the public investment fund bloody owns Newcastle. You guys own Newcastle, so why are we not quicker? Why are we not getting this done? And the public investment fund, they own so many different companies and almost football clubs at this point. They want to get different football clubs as well. So when they have so many companies and so many businesses do, Newcastle's just not a main priority for them. And that's the issue. I don't like the public investment fund side of our ownership over the past couple of years because Newcastle just not seem to be number one for them. They talk about in social media how we want to take this club to number one. Well, where's the action? You can talk all you want, but there's no action. Eddie Howe and the players have been doing the action on the pitch, off the pitch. We've had two awful summer windows now, and we're being able to overachieve, win silverware last season, qualify for the Champions League, and the Public Investment Fund act like it was them. They were able to get the Champions League because of their work behind the scenes when they've done absolutely nothing in the transfer market. It's been Eddie Howe and the players that have continued to achieve greatness on the pitch. And while, of course, since the takeover, we had that probably about the 18-month spell under Amanda and Murdered where the pair, invested quite a lot. They spent a lot. Of course, at the time, our team was rubbish. So you effectively spent to improve the team. And now that the team's half decent, you kind of took that step back. And I don't understand fully why, because Newcastle is an investable club. Of course, you're going to be spending a lot of money in the club, but you would surely imagine with our fan base, especially out in the tour like this in Asia now, we should be having new signings coming out in Asia and waving to the fans and having all this market and all this commercial coming in, but we have nothing. We have just Alanga, where the hype's kind of died down a little bit with Alanga as well because the fans are a bit depressed almost with the Isak stuff, with the lack of transfers. So the club hasn't been able to properly commercialise itself in Asia because of the lack of investment and lack of transfers this summer. And there's no excuse this summer. This is the summer where the PSR's been cleared up, the FFP's been cleared up, but it's just been rubbish from the public investment fund. I do fully stand by, while it is other factors as well. I think Isak's a big factor to the entire thing, but the public investment fund as a whole needs to do something. They need to show what they can do, and they haven't done that in this window. So you kind of have to ask questions towards the ownership side of it. I think Eddie Howe and the coaching staff are obviously fed up. They obviously want pleased, and as long as they can get the players they want in, I'm happy with that. But if it's just Aaron Ramsdale, Alanga, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, oh God, I hope not. But if it's just Dominic Calvert-Lewin and those three, then you can't just laugh at the window because it's hilariously bad. And that's my final message coming out from this video. I've got no issues with Ramsdale as a sign, but I've got issues with absolutely everything else. And I feel like that's the message coming out of this. Ramsdale on a loan, I actually think is decent. He is what we are getting as our second signing. What about the third and fourth? Who are we going to be getting there? It just screams Dominic Calvert-Lewin, doesn't it? I've got a horrible feeling we're going to do it, but we'll wait and see anyway. What do you guys think about the sign if we land? And what do you think about Ramsdale? Do you feel like on a loan deal it's smart and at least enough for Newcastle to be able to focus elsewhere and to actually get some good players in? What do you think about us?